today about Mula Aharon HaKohen, a great Persian man in of its own right. He was a Shluchei D'Rabbanan. He was born in the year 1843 and passed away in 1918, if I'm not mistaken, on the 13th of May 1918, 5 years of age, and was buried in Har Hazeitim in of itself, respectively. He's someone that I believe we've spoken about here on this series about on various occasions before. That's something I'll have to point out here from the outset, and very interesting. We're going to explore a few of the highlights of the famous Mullah's life in of his own right. So very well decorated. He was a son, apparently, of if I'm not mistaken, of Moshe HaKohen, if I'm not mistaken. So in Bishanat 1885, in the year 1885, Heklit Mula Aharon Bechor Moshe Kohen, I think his father was Moshe. Hatoa Mula ניתן למורה או למי שידע לכתוב כמועות ולעשות השבועות וסגולות לכל מיני צרות. לצאת מעירו שירז, he come out of Shiraz in Iran, לביקור של ארבע ערי הקודש. He'd go on to visit Tzfat, Tiberias, Jerusalem and Hebron. These were the four holy cities of the land of Israel, respectively. Very interesting. So he was a well-educated teacher in its own right, and very interesting. Now, it's actually interesting. לאורך מאות שנים טרם היגתו של הכהן, דאגה הקהילה היהודית בפרס ליצירת קשר מתמיד עם ארץ ישראל באמצעות שליחי מצווה. השליחים זכו לכבוד רב, וברבות הימים נמצא כי כתיביהם היו למקור המידע העיקרי לתולדות יהודי המזרח מהמאה העשירית ואילך. הקשר נשמע לאורך השנים בעיקר עם העיר צפת. So there was a strong connection, let's just say, with the holy city of Tzfat in its own right. The Jewish community of Persia, let's just say, was there was establishment, there was contact, I think, emissaries maybe coming through to the land of Israel, highly respected one, and very interesting enough. So this connection, let's just say, would continue at that point in time. So it says over here, הקשר נשמע לאורך השנים בעיקר עם העיר צפת. כבר, I think in the 16th century, התיישבו מעטים המעולי פרס בעיר, ולא במחצית השנית של המאה, somewhat the middle of the 19th century, if I'm not mistaken, that was very עם התפתחות דרכי הגיית חבורה, התרבו השליחים שהגיעו מארץ הקודש לידי הפרס, במטרה לאסוף תרומות עבור מוסדות צדקה וחסד. So many occasions there would be, and let's say people coming and so on and so forth. The job of Shluchei D'Rabbanan, just as a side note, was that they would let's say take raise funds in of itself for they would go to especially one of the four holy cities to raise funds for Israel in its own right. So it's very interesting. Anyone tuning in live, we're exploring the history of famous Mula Aharon HaKohen, who actually very much came from Iran in its own right and will be very prominent, let's just say, and as a Shluchei D'Rabbanan at that stage in time. So a connection would stay between Iran and the city of Tzfat. Specifically, emissaries would come from the Holy Land to Iran or to raise donations in of itself for their important Torah institutions, Gimilut Hasidim institutions, and so on and so forth. So towards the end of the 19th century, I think more people from Iran would start coming now to Eretz Israel, because obviously there was a Muslim regime, there was an oppression against Jews, and Jewish people would suffer discrimination and restriction of their steps by Muslim neighbors in all over the world, let's just say, in of itself. So we're actually recording this here at the time period of a conflict with Iran, we have to point out. So and we're going to continue over here. So it says over here, כאשר הגיעו הכהן לארץ ישראל, פנה לצפת, so you go to צפת, שם הייתה קבעה קהילה של יוצאי פרס. יהודי צפת התרשמו ממנו וביקשו למנות לשדה לערי בוכרה, רוסיה, פולין, קווקז וגרגס דן, כדי לאסוף כספים עבור בני הקהילה העניים בצפת. So raising funds for the city of צפת. עת הסכמתו התנה שיעשה זאת רק בדרכו חזרה לביתו, לאחר שהעלה את כל משפחתו לארץ ישראל. אשתו הראשונה של הכהן לא הרתה, ועל כל נשא אישה שנייה, תמר אנום, I'm just reading this over, אלמנה ואם לבן, בתקווה שתלדת לו ילדים. לבני הזוג נולדו 4 בנים, יוסף הכהן של שלמה, עוצמת השם המקובל, מחבר ספר גורל יד יוסף. בנימין הכהן, רפאל חיים הכהן, איש ציבור, בעל דפוס ומחבר הספר אבנים בחומה. Who was Raphael Chaim HaKohen? Let's just speak about him. Before he lived between 1884 to 1954. He was a man of the congregation of Jerusalem. coming from Iran in its own right, and I think he was a printer, if I'm not mistaken. He was part of a judge, I think, in Beit Mishpat Shalom Ivri. He was part of the Sephardic community, and he was the founder of the famous Beit Knesset or Beit Zion in Zichron Tuvia neighborhood. Somewhere we visited before. This was in the year 1906. The family obviously naturally came from Iran, from Shiraz, in of its own right. And so he was the son, let's just say, in his own right. I think he would be part of a printing house at various different points in time. And I think he passed away on the 29th of December 1954, if I'm not mistaken. So very, very interesting. He was a man of the congregation, someone we've spoken about before here inside this series. He'll have a connection also to Aharon HaKohen, who was another man that was very prominent from the Persian community in Israel, if I'm not mistaken. So that's very, very interesting enough. But let's continue now speaking about Mula Aharon HaKohen over here inside this special edition. Ish Sibur Ba'al Dfus M'chabeh HaSefer Avnim B'Choma. Just going back to Raphael Chaim HaKohen. But Sarah Rashti את שמעון, בנה של אשתה מבעלה הקודם, גידל כבנו, בנו של בנימין הכהן, אהרון חיים הכהן, היה איש מודעין ופעל ציבורי ישראל, who we just mentioned about that. הכהן ניתן כל התכונות הדרושות לשליח כפי שמצער אותו אברהם יערי. Remember, there was a famous man named a bibliographer, who was an investigator, let's just say, within regards to the history and the Toldot of the Mizrahi Jewish community, and hopefully at one stage in time maybe we'll record a video production presentation within regards to Avram Ya'ari in its own right, because he was a chronicler of who היה בעל תורה ומידות, ידע להתהלך עם הבריות, להסתגל למנהגים החדשים ואף להטיל את מורתו בשעת הצורך. כאדם היוצא לנדודי מרחקים במשך שנים רבות, היה עליו להיות אמיץ לב, בקיא בביות העולם, מכיר ללמוד שפות ואף הרפתקן. לפי הספר אבנים בחומה, this book אבנים בחומה, בדרכו חזרה לביתו, יצא הכהן למסע איסוף כספים, עיבור תושבי צפת. He would go representing for the Kil of Tzvat. Mosatav הגיע לעיר קרסו בזאר. He would actually around there. שבאוקראינה. שם נפגש והתחבא עם הרב חיים חזקיה מדיני. Remember the famous Rabbi Chaim חזקיה Medini was one of the great Achronim, the author of the Sedei Chemed in of its own right, and he was one of the great rabbis of his time, I think, in of Hebron, one of the four holy cities. במשך שהותו שם חלה ומצבו היה אנוש, כאשר חשבו שאין תקווה לחייו, נשלח מברק ליהודי צפת על מצבו של השדה החולה שלהם. המברק שאומר, רבני צפת הבינו שהכהן נפטר, ומיד הודיעו לשתי נשותיו ובניו שנשארו בשירז על מות אביהם. שנה שלמה התאבלה כל משפחה עליו, עד שקיבלה מכתב בכתב ידו, כי הוא חי ובדרכו לביתו. מיד אם שובו לשירז, החל הכהן בהכנות לעליות משפחתו לארץ ישראל. ערך מסעות התעוררות בבתי כנסת והפציר ביהודים נוספים לעלות. רבים באו לשמוע אותו וגם לראות את המת שחזר לחיים. So very, very interesting enough. I haven't got that much time because we're about to go inside Shabbat to translate every single word in of itself, but a famous story occurred over there. So I recommend everyone to actually look into that. So let's continue over here. I think the Hebrew University itself will actually chronicle much about him. בריחון המכון לכתב יד בספרייה הלאומית נמצא כתב מינו לשליח של הכהן. בסוף פחות נגר במוזיאון ישראל. נמצא חותם שניתן לשדר הכהן. החוקה עדי מזרח צורף. שחכה כיצד הגיעו המסמכים והחותם הנדרים אל המוזיאון ישראל בספרייה הלאומית. מצא שבעת ביקורו של הכהן בירושלים ביער, I think in the year 1886. הוא נפגש עם הרב דוד מזרחי צורף, who was I think of the old Sephardi Yeshan Yeshuv. Hopefully we can record about him at one stage in time. I think he was founder of the Hakneset Orchim, Hachnasat Orchim, if I'm not mistaken, the debate in of its own right, and hopefully we'll record maybe a presentation also within regards to him. Hacham Yushalmi Asher Hipesh Adar Shisef Kesvim Lekupat Achnasat Orchim. So Shunuda'a Be'ikar Leidas Parsit Lebniat Beit Bo Yenuhu HaOrchim. So it goes on and says, הבאים אל ירושלים. הרב מזרחי צורף צייד את הכהן בתעודת שליחות, בפנקס קבלות ובחותם, בהיותו צורף. לקח מטבע של 10 מיל עם המילה ירושלים במרכזה והפך אותו לחותם, כאשר מחק את הערך והוסיף כיתוב הכנסת אורחים מירושלים. הכהן נשלח לקושש כספים באוקראינה ובגרגסטן מעיתונות התקופה, מתברר שהחותם התוודד גרמו לא צרה. I think there was a newspaper, the Hamlitz, if I'm not mistaken, on the 5th of May in 1887, Hamlitz, I think called, הופיע עדות למצאותו של הכהן בכמה ערים באוקראינה, בעיר חורסן ובאודסה, הכתב מספר, פגשתי פה איש שמו אהרון, משה הכהן בידו פנקס, הכתוב פנים, ואחר בכתב ראשי, והשריט במכתבי יתילה המעידים עליו, כי הנו איש נאמן, תם וישר הלוך ושלוח, הוא לאסוף נדבות עבור חברת הכנסת אורחים בעיר הקדושה ירושלים, משום ששדרים רבים כבשו תרומות באזור, ומשום שכתב הסדרות שנשא הכהן לא אותר, בחתימותיהם של הראשון לציון וגדולי חכמי ישראל, הביא הכותב חשד כלפי חשדר וסבור שאינו שליח ירושלים ושיזף את החותם שבין צייד אותו מזרחי צורף ורכש אותו באודסה. The whole story actually came out over here. Yes, so we should just speak about that for a minute. I think I think there's that book of the stone walls that he would come out on a fundraising trip and meet during his travels. He was very well traveled. I think first of all he would there was a whole story where they thought he died and he didn't pass away. That's what we said before. And I think he would actually go out to the land of Israel. We're just talking about a story there. They would go on a journey for 6 months, you know, traveling through caravans and horses on the, I think, the Suez Canal. They would board a ship in the Persian Gulf, port city, if I'm not mistaken, camel to Shiraz, and arrive in Israel, and hiring donkeys, mules to travel to take the family. And eventually there was, I think, a snowstorm would actually stop the caravan in Jerusalem, and he would get, I think, a letter of appointment from the emissary of, and National Library Archive will actually speak about this entire incident within regards to what actually happened over here in its own right. So, but what's interesting is this great rabbi, this great Mula, would actually go from city to city to collect donations all throughout his time in all places. Yeah, very, very interesting. And I think it was close to Rabbi Chaim Hizkiah Medini. And yeah, very, very interesting. And would contact rabbis in Jerusalem and so on and so forth. And I think there was correspondence with Rabbi Meir Raphael Panizel, who was a rabbi also. And there was various chief rabbis over there at that point in time. Yeah, which is going on in all itself. And I think there's researchers in its own right on this specific topic. And Rabbi Medini would correspond with all the rabbis, let's just say, within regards to this. So very, very interesting. So yeah. So I think a lot of people actually end up coming to Eretz Israel from Shiraz because of his, let's just say, activities in its own right. He will help a lot of people come to Eretz Israel. So that, you know, we explored various different places in Jerusalem where many different Persian synagogues were actually established. So partly thanks to him, from his great endeavors, great work in his own right, they would actually come help very much. And I think there are very different neighborhoods in Jerusalem where many poor Persian families come to Jerusalem, and various different, I think he died in Jerusalem, was buried at the time period when Jordanians were ruling. And unfortunately, I think it's reported that his grave was actually destroyed, if I'm not mistaken, at the time period when the Jordanians actually took over. He's got a book, if I'm not mistaken, called Avanim B'Choma, which would actually, B'Hotzat Beit Alim Tafus Raphael Chaim HaKohen, if I'm not mistaken, over there. So he's a very, very important personality of his time. He was Mula Aharon HaKohen. There's actually a picture of him from, I think, the year 1910 in of its own right, we have to point out over here, which we have over there. Sorry, once again, just many apologies that I've said this just over some of the commentary in Hebrew over here. And it's just, we're pressed for time because it's going to be about to be Shabbat at the moment over here in Israel. So we're recording a special presentation within regards to Mula Aharon HaKohen, who came from a very famous family, who would be very, very much responsible correspondence with various different famous rabbis all over Israel. That's something that we have to point out over here, including Rabbi Hizkiah Medini, if I'm not mistaken. And many, many people come to Israel because of he was Shochet de Rabbanan that would be very, very well traveled and go from place to place, so on and so forth, all throughout his time. Mula Aharon HaKohen, famous Persian personality, and and would really, really hope or increase Aliyah from Eretz Israel. As I said before, I said this in Hebrew, so much apologize within regards to that. Usually I like to stay over, but because there was not much time, because it's about to be Shabbat over here in Israel, so I had to do an abridged version. I recommend everyone to learn more about him. I was using Wikipedia over here as a source over here for this specific presentation, and very, very interesting. And please learn more. And don't forget, friends, anyone that you're tuning in live here at the moment, please subscribe to our community over here. We are exploring life of different rabbis. We've already recorded about maybe 60 Persian rabbis, approximately, I would say, actually, inside this series. So I would recommend everyone to learn more. And wishing you all well. Don't forget to all have a Shabbat Shalom Muvarach. Learn more about the famous personalities of yesteryear and so on and so forth. And I think we're going to call it today over here. Thanks for watching and take care.